My name is Chloe. I am 26 years old, and until recently, I honestly believed I understood what family meant. I thought it meant being there when it mattered most, showing up when everything was falling apart. I found out I was wrong on the day my body betrayed me, and my family did too. The pain started like a knot in my stomach that morning, a dull ache I tried to ignore because I had rehearsals later. Within an hour, it turned into something sharp and twisting, stealing the air from my lungs. I collapsed on the kitchen floor, phone clutched in my shaking hand, and dialed for an ambulance because there was no one else around to help. By the time the paramedics wheeled me into the emergency room, I was drenched in sweat and barely holding on. I kept asking if someone had called my mom. They said yes. I imagined her running through the hospital doors, worried, frantic, taking my hand. That's what mothers do, right? Instead, while I lay there on a gurney, trying not to pass out, I heard her voice just outside the curtain. Calm, casual, almost bored. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to the rest of my family. "Let's go back home. She'll be fine. We can't miss the party." They left. All of them. They chose cake, music, and birthday photos over the possibility that something was seriously wrong with me. As the doors swung shut behind them, the only sound left was the beeping of machines and my own heart hammering in my ears. Hours later, when I woke up from emergency surgery, I reached for my phone with shaking fingers. And in that moment, lying there alone, I made a decision that would turn my entire family upside down. Before I tell you exactly what I did with my phone that made my entire family blow up my messages, begging me to stop and asking for forgiveness, make sure you stay with me until the end and tell me in the comments what you would have done if your own mother walked away from you like that. When I first opened my eyes after surgery, everything was a blur of white light and muffled voices. My throat burned, my abdomen throbbed with a deep, angry pain, and my head felt strangely heavy, like it was filled with water instead of thoughts. For a few seconds I couldn't remember where I was or why I hurt so much. Then it all came back in a rush. The ambulance, the cold metal of the gurney, and my mom's voice drifting in from the hallway, telling everyone to go home, telling them I would be fine. Saying it like a casual comment about the weather instead of a decision to leave her daughter alone before an emergency surgery. A nurse noticed my eyes flicker open and smiled. She adjusted something on the IV pole and spoke in that gentle tone people use with fragile things. "Hey, Chloe, surgery went well. You're in recovery now. How are you feeling?" I croaked something about water, but what I really wanted to ask was, "Is my family here?" The words never left my mouth. A part of me already knew the answer. When she stepped away to grab a cup and straw, I turned my head and scanned the room. No familiar faces, no flowers, no jacket thrown over a chair, no one waiting anxiously by the curtain. I was alone in a room full of strangers who cared more about my vitals than the people who shared my blood. My phone sat on the tray beside me. I stared at it for a long time before I picked it up. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. I braced myself for an empty notification bar, for the final confirmation that I truly didn't matter as much as the party they were so eager not to miss. Instead, the screen lit up with a wall of unread messages, group chats, missed calls, dozens of notifications stacked on top of each other like bricks. My heart skipped. For a second, I stupidly hoped, they must be outside. Maybe they're just not allowed in yet. I opened the first message. It wasn't, "We're here." It wasn't, "We're waiting for you." It was a photo from the birthday party. Balloons, cake, smiling faces, my mom standing in the middle, raising a glass. The caption underneath read, "Family time is the best time." I scrolled. Video of everyone singing, laughing, making jokes about how late it was getting and how they were all too old to be up this late, followed by a string of laughing emojis. In the background, I could hear my mom's voice clearly, shouting over the music. "She'll be fine. They always exaggerate in hospitals." The nurse came back and paused when she saw my expression. "Do you need me to call someone for you?" she asked. I shook my head. My chest felt tight. It wasn't that I didn't need anyone. I just didn't want to call the people who had decided I was optional. I took the water, swallowed carefully, then waited until she left. The second the curtain swayed closed, I unlocked my phone again. More messages were popping up now. Not from my mom, not from my cousin, from extended family, a couple of friends, people asking whether the rumors were true, whether I really had surgery alone, whether my family really hadn't stayed. Someone had clearly talked, and the story was leaking out of whatever group chat it had started in. One text stood out from the rest. It was from a childhood friend who was at the party. "I am so sorry, Chloe. I thought you knew they decided to stay. I thought you were okay with it. If I had known, I never would have stayed either." I stared at those words, something inside me cracking. They decided. They discussed it. My situation wasn't an emergency to them. It was a scheduling inconvenience they negotiated around a party. Had they debated it like a logistics problem? Had anyone said, "This is wrong"? A cold, clear anger began to cut through the fog in my head. For years, I had swallowed little disappointments. The recital they missed because of a barbecue. The graduation they arrived late to and pretended didn't matter. The times I was sick and heard them complain about traffic or parking instead of asking how I felt. I had always told myself they didn't mean it, that they loved me, just in a clumsy way, that I was strong, independent, fine on my own, that I didn't need them to show up. But lying there with stitches in my abdomen and dried tears on my cheeks, something shifted. Maybe the real question wasn't, how could they do this? But, how much longer am I going to let them? My thumb hovered over the social media app on my phone. I opened the camera instead and took a picture of myself. Pale, exhausted, hospital bracelet visible, IV line taped to the back of my hand. No filters, no angle to make it prettier, just reality. I stared at the picture for a long time. My finger trembled over the post button. Part of me was terrified. Another part felt more alive than it had in years. If they could leave me alone in surgery, maybe it was time the rest of the world saw what our family first really looked like behind the staged photos. I didn't post it. Not yet. Instead, I saved the photo and opened a blank note. I started typing, not about the surgery, but about every small betrayal that had led me to this bed alone. The truth poured out of me, raw and unedited. I didn't know it yet, but that note would become the weapon that made my family finally panic. And for once, it wouldn't be me scrambling to fix everything. It would be them. The next morning, the hospital felt colder. Not physically, the temperature was the same, but emotionally, everything felt sharper, more defined. The illusion I had held onto about my family had been cut cleanly in half, and now I was staring at the jagged edges. I woke up to the vibration of my phone rattling against the plastic tray. A flurry of notifications flooded the screen. Group chats, missed calls, voicemails. A few messages actually from my mom now, piling on top of everything else. "We're coming by later. How are you feeling? Please answer, I'm worried." I almost laughed. Worried now. That word should have come 12 hours earlier, when I was being wheeled into an operating room, staring at the lights overhead and wondering if anyone would be there when I woke up. For a moment, I considered just turning the phone off. That would have been easy, safe, quiet. But easy and safe were the two words that had allowed them to keep walking all over my feelings for years. They were easy for them. I made things safe by never making a scene. So instead, I opened the note I had written the night before. Reading it again made my chest ache. I had written about missing my graduation because they couldn't get off work. but somehow made it to every single event for my cousin. I had written about watching recordings of my own dance recitals alone because they always promised to come next time. I wrote about the way they called me strong as an excuse not to show up. As I read, a question echoed in my mind. At what point does being strong stop being a compliment and become a sentence? The nurse who had been with me the day before came in again and checked my chart. "You look more awake today," she said. "Any visitors yet?" "Not yet," I replied. My voice was calm, but my fingers clenched around the phone. It felt almost wicked to admit it, but a part of me didn't want them to come. Not until I decided what I was going to do. "You can always ask to limit who comes in, you know," she added gently, as if she could sense the turmoil. "You're allowed to set boundaries, especially now." Boundaries. Such a simple word for something I had never really had. I had routines, obligations, a script I followed to keep the peace. But boundaries? No. The conversation with her gave me more clarity than any late-night overthinking ever had. When she left, I opened my contacts and scrolled to the emergency contact settings. My mom's name glowed on the screen, the default I had never questioned. My finger hovered over edit. I took a breath and changed it. I removed her number and added a different one. My best friend. The one person who had texted me before the surgery and after, who had actually asked if I was scared instead of asking if I had remembered to post a good luck selfie. The moment I hit save, a strange sense of relief flooded through me. It was small, but it was concrete. A tiny piece of my life that was now protected from people who treated me like background noise. I opened social media again and uploaded the photo I had taken in the middle of the night. No filter, no makeup, just the hospital wristband, the oxygen clip still on my finger, my eyes a little red. My caption was simple, but every word was a cut. Had emergency surgery last night, went in alone, woke up alone. Fun fact, the rest of my family chose a birthday party instead. Apparently, I'm strong enough to do this kind of thing by myself. Just posting this here so I remember not to forget that again. I hovered over the post button, my heart pounding. I wasn't tagging anyone. I wasn't naming names. But everyone who needed to understand would understand. I pressed post. Within seconds, the little heart icon started ticking up. Notifications flashed across the top of my screen faster than I could read them. Comments began to appear. "What? Are you okay? Please tell me you're joking. This is not what family is supposed to look like." Some comments came from friends I hadn't talked to in years. A couple came from people at the birthday party. They admitted they had seen my mom shrug it off, had watched my family clink glasses while my surgery time got closer. One person wrote, "I felt sick about it but didn't know what to say. I'm so sorry." Underneath the pity and outrage, I felt something else rising. Validation. People I barely knew could see what my own family had refused to see. They saw the problem clearly without the fog of excuses, without the weight of, "That's just how they are." And then the text started. My mom. "Chloe, what did you post? People are calling me." Another family member. "Take that down. You're making everyone look bad." My cousin. "I didn't know it was that serious. Please delete it, they're freaking out." The irony almost made me smile. They didn't rush to my bedside when I was in pain, but the moment their image, their carefully crafted picture of a perfect family, took a hit, that sent them into panic. I typed back one sentence to the relative who told me I was making everyone look bad. "You're only upset because I stopped hiding what you did." I didn't respond to anyone else. Instead, I placed the phone face down, closed my eyes, and let the noise explode without me. For the first time, I wasn't trying to protect them from consequences. I wasn't smoothing things over. I wasn't rewriting what happened to make it more palatable. A thought crept in, quiet but persistent. If telling the truth makes them panic, what does that say about the kind of family I've been trying so hard to protect? By the afternoon, the damage was done. My post had traveled farther than I ever expected. People had shared it, commented on it, messaged me privately to tell me their own stories of being the strong one who didn't get support when they needed it most. It was strangely comforting and deeply sad at the same time. But for my family, it was something else entirely, a spotlight they couldn't escape. The nurse came in and told me my mom had arrived and was asking to come up. The word asking struck me. Usually, my family just assumed access to my life. Now they had to go through a gatekeeper. It was subtle, but it mattered. "Do you want to see her?" the nurse asked. I hesitated. Then I nodded. Yes. But not everyone at once. Just her and my cousin. And if I press the call button, I want you to come back in, okay? She nodded, understanding more than I said. A few minutes later, the curtain shifted and my mom stepped inside. She looked different. Not just tired, shaken. Her eyes were puffy, like she had been crying, and her mouth pressed into a thin line as she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My cousin followed, hands stuffed into his pockets, avoiding my gaze. "Chloe?" my mom started, her voice too bright. "We saw your post. Sweetheart, it's not what it looks like." I let out a humorless laugh. "Really? Which part is not what it looks like? The surgery? The part where you left? Or the part where the whole family stayed at the party while I was in an operating room?" My cousin winced. My mom flinched. Her mask slipped for a second, and I saw frustration flash across her face. "You're making it sound worse than it was. We were told it was routine. They said you'd be fine. You know how dramatic hospitals can be." My heart pounded. "So you heard the word surgery and decided a birthday party was more important?" She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The quiet in my words was louder than any shout. "Do you know what they asked me before they wheeled me in?" I said. "They asked who was waiting for me. I told them my family was here. I lied for you." Silence settled over the room like a thick blanket. My cousin shifted his weight from one foot to the other, staring at the floor. "I didn't want the doctors and nurses to see how alone I actually was," I continued. "I didn't want strangers to look at me with pity because my own mother thought a party mattered more." "Do you have any idea how humiliating that felt?" Her voice dropped. "I didn't mean for you to feel humiliated. I thought you were strong enough to handle it." That word again, strong. It grated against me now. "You keep calling me strong like it's a compliment," I said. "But what you really mean is convenient. I'm convenient because you don't have to worry about me. Because you can leave and assume I'll be fine. Do you ever ask yourself what that kind of love feels like from this side?" My mom's eyes filled with tears. "People are calling me Chloe. They're sending me screenshots, asking how I could do that to my own daughter. I know you're angry, but posting it publicly it was cruel." The accusation hung between us. Cruel. I felt my jaw tighten. Cruel was leaving me here alone and then posting family first under party photos. Cruel was making that choice and assuming I'd never say anything. Telling the truth about it? That's not cruelty. That's accountability. My cousin finally looked up. "I didn't realize you'd feel this way," he muttered. "I thought you understood it wasn't personal." I stared at him, a bitter smile creeping onto my lips. "If your appendix had burst instead of mine, do you think they would have left you here to go to my birthday party?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. The answer was obvious, and we both knew it. My mom wiped her face angrily. "Of course we love you," she said. "You posting that makes it look like we don't care at all. People are judging us without knowing the full story." I tilted my head. "Okay, then, tell me the full story. Walk me through the exact moment you decided to leave the hospital. What did you say? What did you think?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. She glanced at my cousin as if looking for backup. He avoided her eyes. The truth was simple. The full story wasn't any better than the version I had posted. A long, heavy silence followed. I let it stretch. They were finally feeling a fraction of the discomfort I had carried for years. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady. "I'm not taking the post down," I said. "I'm not hiding what happened so you can feel better. If it makes you uncomfortable, maybe that's the point." My mom stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "You're punishing us," she whispered. "You punished me every time you didn't show up," I replied quietly. "The difference is I'm just letting other people see it now. I'm done bleeding in private so you can keep pretending we're the perfect family." A question flickered in my mind, sharp and painful. If the only way to keep a family intact is to keep bleeding alone in the dark, is that family even worth saving? I didn't say it out loud. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back against the pillows and added, "Things are going to change when I get out of here. For all of us." They didn't know it yet. But the performance I had coming up wouldn't just be a dance. It would be my revenge, my confession, and my line in the sand. And they would have to sit in the front row and watch. The days after that confrontation blurred into a strange rhythm of physical healing and emotional aftershocks. Nurses came and went. Doctors checked my incision, adjusted meds, explained discharge plans. But the real surgery felt like it was happening inside my relationships, not my body. My post kept circulating. A few local dance friends reshared it with comments about how proud they were that I was speaking up. An old teacher messaged me privately and said she'd always suspected something was off with the way my family showed up, for everyone but you. Stories poured into my inbox from people who had been the responsible one, the strong one, the independent one. All labels used to justify neglect. My mom's messages shifted from defensive to pleading. "We look like monsters. Please take it down. People don't understand the context. You're ruining relationships over one mistake." One mistake. That phrase bothered me more than anything else. It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern that climaxed when I was wheeled into surgery without anyone at my side. I answered with a long message for the first time since they'd left that day. I told her I wasn't trying to ruin relationships. I was refusing to carry all the pain in silence anymore. I told her what the nurse had said about boundaries. I told her I had changed my emergency contact. The phone was silent for a long time after that. Then, "You changed your emergency contact? To who?" I responded, "To someone who actually showed up." There were no more messages from her that night. When the hospital finally discharged me, I didn't go home with my family. My best friend picked me up, arm around my shoulders as I walked slowly down the hallway. My mom was waiting near the exit, standing off to the side, eyes red, but I barely looked at her. She wanted to drive me home. I said I already had a ride. It was a quiet kind of revenge, walking past her without giving in to the pull of guilt. I could feel her stare between my shoulder blades, but I didn't turn around. At my friend's apartment, surrounded by warmth and clutter and real concern, I began planning the other part of my revenge without even realizing it. My performance. Before the surgery, my big show had been just that. A big show. A chance to prove myself, maybe land another contract, maybe be noticed by someone important in the audience. Now it was something else. Now it was a stage where I could finally tell my story in a language my family couldn't talk over. Movement. I called my choreographer and told her I needed to change my solo. She hesitated at first. The program was already set, the music prepared. But when I explained what had happened, the surgery, the party, the post, she went very quiet. "You want your solo to be about this?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "about being left and about choosing myself." There was a pause, then a slow exhale. "It's your story, Chloe. If you're ready to tell it, we'll make space." The next week was brutal. I was still healing, moving carefully so I wouldn't pull anything. We adjusted the choreography to work with my limitations, turning explosive jumps into sharp gestures, deep back bends into controlled, trembling arches. Instead of seeing my reduced mobility as a weakness, we built the entire piece around it. My body became a map of what I had just survived. We decided to open the solo with me lying on the floor, curled in on myself, one arm wrapped protectively around my stomach. A single spotlight. Slow, hollow music at first, like a heartbeat echoing in a metal room. Then, as the music grew, I would force myself up, collapsing and rising, pushed down by invisible hands, dragged by something only I could feel. Near the middle of the piece, we added a section where I reached toward the wings, hands open, then jerked back, as if doors kept slamming in my face. It was subtle, but I knew exactly what it meant. The part of me that had always reached for my family, hoping they might choose me, was now pulling away for good. We even built in a quiet pause where I would stand near the front of the stage, facing the audience, breathing hard, holding my stomach. In that moment, the lights would shift, and a projection would appear behind me. Not photos of my actual hospital room, but an abstract, flickering image of monitors and a gurney. It would be enough for people to fill in the blanks. The final section of the solo would be different from anything I had done before. Instead of ending in a triumphant pose, arms raised high, we choreographed an ending where I walked slowly toward the back of the stage, away from the audience, away from the projected hospital imagery. I would stop just before the darkness swallowed me, look back over my shoulder, and then turn away again, choosing the unknown future over the familiar pain. I told no one in my family what the piece was about. Publicly, it was called Alone, Finally. On the program, the description was vague. A solo exploring independence, resilience, and the cost of being seen as strong. Behind the scenes, the whispers continued. Some relatives unfollowed me after my post. Others watched silently but never liked, never commented. My mom stopped complaining about how bad everyone looked and shifted to sending shorter, more subdued messages. "I'll be at your performance," she wrote once. "No matter what you think of me, I will be there." I read it 3 times, unsure if I felt comforted or threatened. Was she coming to support me or to manage appearances? My cousin texted too. "I know I messed up. I'll be there too. Please just don't hate me." I didn't answer either of them. Not because I wanted to torture them, but because I needed the silence. I needed the distance to prepare for what I was about to do. One night, staring at the notes app on my phone, I rewrote the caption from my original hospital post and saved it as a voiceover script. I would record it later and ask the sound engineer to layer it over a section of my solo. My own voice, describing exactly what had happened, echoing through the theater while I moved. Was it petty? Maybe. Was it revenge? Absolutely. But it wasn't revenge to destroy them. It was revenge to force them to finally look at me, really look at me, and at what their choices had done. A quiet thought whispered inside me as I lay in bed that night. If they can't sit in a theater and face what they did, how could they ever have faced it in a hospital room? The night of the performance arrived with the kind of electricity that makes your skin buzz. Backstage, the air smelled like hairspray, sweat, and nerves. Dancers stretched in the hallways, whispered last-minute pep talks, and adjusted costumes under the harsh fluorescent lights. I stood in front of the mirror, tracing the line of the scar beneath my costume. It was discreet, covered by fabric, but I could feel it, a tight, tender reminder of everything that had brought me here. I pressed my fingers gently over it and whispered to myself, "You survived." A stagehand poked his head in. 10 minutes until places," he called. I glanced at my phone one last time. There were messages from friends wishing me luck. A few from people who had seen my post and were coming specifically to watch this piece. Nothing from my mom that day. The silence was almost eerie, like the eye of a storm. When I peeked through the side curtain, I saw them. My family. My mom in the second row, sitting up straight, clutching a program so tightly the edges were bending. My cousin beside her, stiff, eyes fixed on the stage as if staring at anything else might make this harder. A couple of other relatives sat a few seats away, looking anywhere but at each other. I wondered what they were expecting. Probably something pretty and emotional, the kind of dance you clap for and then forget about by the time you reach the parking lot. They had no idea they were about to sit through a reenactment of their own neglect, translated into movement, sound, and light. The show began with group pieces, upbeat routines that drew laughter and cheers from the audience. I danced in one of them, smiling on cue, moving through formations with mechanical precision. Inside, I was saving my energy. My real performance hadn't started yet. Finally, the announcer's voice echoed through the theater. Next up, a solo piece choreographed and performed by Chloe, alone, finally. The lights dimmed. The audience quieted. A single spotlight bloomed in the center of the stage. I walked out slowly and lay down in the circle of light. One arm folded over my stomach, the other resting by my side. For a moment, I just breathed. In. Out. The theater was so silent I could hear someone shifting in their seat. Then the music started. It wasn't a song with lyrics, just a low, haunting composition built around a heartbeat rhythm. Mild at first, then slowly intensifying. I began to move, small tremors running through my body, like pain rippling out from my core. Every flinch, every curl of my fingers was deliberate. I wanted the audience to see struggle, not grace. As the piece progressed, the lighting shifted from white to a sickly bluish tone, mimicking hospital lights. The projection appeared behind me. Monitors, wires, a ghostly outline of a gurney. It wasn't literal, but it was enough. People in the audience would connect the dots, especially the ones who knew about my surgery. Midway through, as the music sank into a softer, thinner sound, another layer emerged. My voice. A recording of myself, speaking over the music. The words I had written in the hospital, spoken in a calm, steady tone. I had emergency surgery last week. I went in alone. I woke up alone. My family chose a birthday party over sitting in a hospital waiting room. They call me the strong one. What they really mean is, I am the one they can leave behind. I heard a murmur ripple through the audience. The rhythm of their breathing changed. Someone in the back gasped softly. On stage, I staggered to my feet, reaching toward the wings, fingertips straining as if reaching for someone who kept stepping just out of reach. Each time I reached, I let my body snap backward, collapsing to the floor. I made it messy. Not graceful, not elegant. It looked like falling. My recorded voice continued. People say blood is thicker than water. Maybe that's true. But what good is thick blood if it runs cold when you need it to warm you? In the second row, I saw movement. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. My cousin's eyes widened. Even from the stage, under the glare of the lights, I could feel their discomfort like heat. The dance built into a frenzied section, sharp movements, fists pounding against my chest, hands clawing at the air. It felt like an argument translated into motion, years of swallowed words finally spilling out. Then, as the music dropped almost to silence, the projection behind me shifted. The hospital imagery faded, replaced by a blurry still of a party. Balloons, a cake, smiling silhouettes. Not detailed enough to identify anyone, but symbolic enough that my mom undoubtedly recognized the scene. My voice returned, quieter now. I didn't post to punish anyone. I posted because I was tired of bleeding in private while my family posted family first under party photos. If the truth makes you uncomfortable, maybe the problem isn't the truth. The final section of the solo began. The music softened, transforming into something mournful but strangely hopeful. I stopped reaching toward the wings. Instead, I turned my back to the audience and walked slowly toward the rear of the stage, each step heavy, like walking through water. Just before I reached the darkness, I turned my head over my shoulder, looking out at the audience. I couldn't see individual faces, but I knew my family was there, frozen in their seats. My gaze lingered for a beat longer than the choreography strictly required. Then I turned away again and stepped into the shadows as the lights faded to black. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. No sound. No movement. Just darkness. And then the audience erupted. Applause crashed over the stage, loud and sustained. People whistled. Someone shouted my name. I stood in the shadows, breathing hard, letting the sound wash over me. For once, the noise wasn't exhausting. It felt like a validation I had never allowed myself to crave. When the lights came back up for the curtain call, I stepped out with the rest of the cast. We took our bows in a line, hands clasped. When it was my turn to step forward, the applause swelled again. People were standing now. Not everyone, but enough. I glanced toward the second row. My mom was on her feet, clapping, but her face was pale, eyes red. My cousin clapped too, but his jaw was clenched, his gaze fixed on me like he was seeing me for the first time. As we left the stage and the curtain fell, my heart pounded not with stage fright, but with a strange, fierce peace. I hadn't set out to destroy them. I had simply told the truth in the only language that had ever made me feel powerful. But the truth has consequences, and those were still waiting for me in the lobby. After the show, the backstage hallway turned into a chaotic river of bodies, congratulations, and bouquets being thrust into hands. My fellow dancers hugged me, some with tears in their eyes. A couple of them admitted they had read my post and realized the piece was about more than just independence. That was brutal, one of them said softly, but beautiful. I felt every second. I smiled, exhausted. Good. You were supposed to. My choreographer squeezed my shoulder. You were brave, she whispered. That was more than a performance. That was a confession. I knew what she meant. The piece had stripped me down emotionally in front of a room full of people, including the ones who had hurt me the most. It was exposure and revenge and healing all tangled up in 8 minutes of movement. Eventually, I couldn't avoid the lobby any longer. I stepped out, clutching a bouquet someone had handed me, and almost immediately saw them. My mom, my cousin, and 2 other relatives clustered together near the exit. They looked smaller than usual somehow, like the room had grown and they hadn't kept up. My mom moved toward me first. Her steps were hesitant, cautious, like she was approaching a wild animal that might bolt. "Chloe," she began, voice shaking, "can we talk?" People milled around us, some casting curious glances, recognizing us from the performance, and, probably, from my now viral post. This conversation was not going to be clean or private. For the first time in my life, I felt that worked in my favor. There would be no rewriting history later, no claiming it wasn't that bad or you misunderstood. "We're talking," I said. She swallowed hard. "I didn't realize. I mean, I knew you were upset, but that piece, your post, all of it, I didn't see how deep it went. I kept telling myself you were strong, that you didn't need us the same way." My voice stayed calm. "You needed that idea more than I did. It made it easier to walk away." Tears spilled over onto her cheeks. "I am so, so sorry," she whispered. "Seeing you up there, hearing your voice say all those things, knowing everyone was listening. I have never felt so ashamed in my life." A part of me wanted to soften, to tell her it was okay, that I understood, that we all make mistakes. That's what I had always done, patch up the damage so no one had to sit in discomfort too long. But another part of me remembered the cold hospital room, the empty chair, the way she had said, "She'll be fine," like I was a chore she couldn't be bothered to complete. "Shame is the beginning," I said quietly, "not the end." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You feel guilty right now because people saw what you did," I said. "Because you were embarrassed in public. That's not the same as actually changing. Tomorrow, when the embarrassment starts to fade, what happens then? Do you go back to normal? Back to pretending it was just one bad night?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I don't want to go back to normal. Normal was wrong. I see that now. I prioritized the wrong things. I prioritized convenience and appearances and— Her voice broke. I prioritized him. My cousin stiffened beside her, but he didn't argue. I turned to look at him. Do you understand why that hurt me? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. I do now. Not just because of the surgery. Because of everything before that. I always assumed you were fine, that you didn't mind when they missed things. I thought you liked being on your own. I didn't like it, I said. I adapted to it. There's a difference. For a moment, none of us spoke. The noise of the lobby swelled around us. People laughing, planning late dinners, dissecting the show. It was surreal to stand in the middle of all that normal life and have my entire family dynamic unravel at my feet. My mom took a shaky breath. Tell me what you need, she said. Not what you think I want to hear. Not what makes it easier for me. What do you really need from us? The question hit me harder than any apology. Maybe because no one in my family had ever asked me that before. Not seriously. I thought about giving an easy answer. I need you to show up. I need you to listen. I need you to love me. All true, but too vague. Too easy to twist later. So I went deeper. I need space, I said first. Real space. Not silent treatment that we pretend is fine. I need time away from you to figure out who I am when I'm not busy trying to prove I deserve to be chosen. My mom's face crumpled, but she nodded. I need you to stop calling me strong every time you want to excuse yourself from showing up, I continued. If you're tired or scared or just don't want to be somewhere, say that. Own it. Don't hide behind my supposed resilience. She nodded again, tears streaming freely now. I need you to go to therapy, I added, the word surprising even me. Not just you. All of you. You need someone neutral to tell you it's not normal to leave your child alone in surgery because of a party. You need someone who isn't me. My cousin swallowed. Okay, he said quietly. If that's what it takes, I'll go. I'll sit there and listen. I owe you that much. My mom hesitated, then nodded. If that's what you need, I'll do it, she said. I don't want to keep hurting you. I don't want to be that kind of mother anymore. Another relative, who had been silent until now, spoke up. You really felt that alone? She asked. I turned to her, tired. I wasn't alone, I said. I had doctors, nurses, strangers. The only people who weren't there were the ones who were supposed to be. She had no answer for that. I took a breath. There's one more thing, I said. I'm not taking the post down. My mom flinched. But I'll edit it, I interrupted. I'll update it. I'll say my family is trying to make it right, that we're going to therapy, that we're working on things. But I'm not erasing what happened. That story is part of me now. It's part of what made me strong. Not the kind of strong that lets people walk over me, but the kind that finally says, enough. She looked devastated and relieved at the same time, like a person who had been sentenced but spared the harshest version. Does this mean you forgive us? She asked, voice trembling. Forgiveness. The word sat heavy on my tongue. I forgive myself first, I said slowly, for staying silent for so long, for pretending it didn't hurt, for twisting myself into knots so you wouldn't feel bad. As for you, forgiveness will be a process. It's not a switch I flip because you're crying in the lobby. Her shoulders sagged, but there was acceptance in her eyes now. I'll wait, she said. I'll show you. Not with words. With what I do next. We didn't hug. I saw the instinct flicker in her posture, the urge to pull me in and bury the conversation under physical closeness. I took a small step back, and she stopped herself. Respecting that boundary was her first test, and to her credit, she passed it. My cousin offered a tentative half-smile. Your performance was intense, he said, but you were amazing. Thank you, I replied. I meant every second of it. I know, he said quietly. They left a few minutes later, promising to text me about therapy appointments, about plans to talk more, to listen more. For once, I didn't respond with automatic reassurance. I just nodded and watched them walk away. When they were gone, my friend came up beside me and bumped her shoulder against mine. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. "Lighter," I said, "but not fixed. And that's okay." That night, lying in bed, I reopened my original hospital post, the one that had started the family panic. I added a second part beneath it. Update. My family is embarrassed, and for the first time, actually listening. They came to my show. They cried. They apologized. They agreed to therapy. I'm not taking this post down because this is my story too. I still don't know if I can fully forgive them. But I do know this. I'm done being the strong one who suffers in silence so everyone else can stay comfortable. If your family ever makes you feel like you don't deserve support, remember, you are allowed to tell the truth. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose yourself. Before I hit save, a question surfaced in my mind, one I knew wouldn't leave me alone for a long time. If the people who say they love you only show up when the world is watching, is that really love? Or just fear of being exposed? I don't have a perfect answer yet. Maybe I never will. But I know this much. The next time I am lying in a hospital bed or standing on a stage or sitting alone in my apartment, I will not be begging anyone to choose me. I have already chosen myself. And if you were in my place, with a mother who told everyone to go back home while you were being rushed into surgery, what would you do? Would you hide it to protect them? Or would you finally let the world see who they really are?